The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and in the name of the Divine Reminder, and I miss today the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I greet you in the nation's greetings of peace and paradise once again. Assalamu alaikum. What we will attempt to do in this short period of time as it relates to asking Brother Akbar the questions that only scratch the surface is to, what we want to do is get a view of the world of Akbar, that's, if you allow me to say that, Brother Minister, the world of Akbar through his eyes and of himself and of the people, places, and things that he has interacted with over the years. So, if Allah please, we will be able to do the kind of work in terms of pulling information from him, and that's never difficult to do, that will broaden the perspective of all of us and give us an appreciation not only of himself but of the Nation of Islam. That first question is, in the last 20 years, what would you describe your role as being in the Nation of Islam?
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful. Thank you very much. First, I'm honored to be here. I'm honored that Raul and Paulette and my sister, you have to forgive me, but I thank Allah that you came and made that sacrifice. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
A lot of microphones is picking it up, so it's recorded perfectly. So we're just going to ask the movement and the noise to be minimized to nothing.
I've been grounded just about 2 years, and then I had some health challenges. I asked my daughter one day, you don't know I have a lot of daughters, but I asked Latifah, I said, what should I do about these? Why I have these bags under my eyes? She said, Daddy, because you old. And then my son, I only have one, and he asked the other day when my birthday came and I turned 79. See, by all how young I am, right? I turned 79, and he called me and said, Dad, I can't believe that you're 79. I said, believe it, I am 79. He said, I just can't believe that. And so it's a great honor for me to be here because the brothers who called me from Chicago, Captain Mustafa and Brother Rasul, and they were, I think Nava was on the line. They wanted to get my view of the history, especially of Mosque number 7, and because we lost so many giants, and it's only a few left who lived through that period and were able to serve in that period. The Nation of Islam has been, people don't like, we don't use the word organization, but the Nation of Islam has liberated the minds of millions of people around the world. And I looked at Harlem, I rode by 125th and Park Avenue in Lexington. I really couldn't believe it. When I first came to the mosque, 116th Street in Lenox, or Malcom X, was the drug corner. And I mean, they were out there waiting for the drug man to come, you know. And I looked at that. And then when I was in the village one time, you know, I'm a jazz buff, so I was always down there when I was young. There was a picture in an apartment of a man that we were in, and it had a tree. And one side of the tree had life on it, and the other side had death. It was dead. And some of you who have lived in the country or traveled to the countryside, you see trees like that, lightning strike them, and, you know, one side lives and the other side died. And at 116th and Malcom X Boulevard, right on that corner, the corner actually where the mosque, at that time it was 4 floors to the mosque. Marcus Garvey used to meet in the building. Its other fame was Dutch Schultz started the number running in Harlem from that particular building. And what that represent. Here were brothers who were dead, who were lost, and the mosque there represent a new hold on life. And that's what I saw in my early days. I'm 18 years old, and I just wanted to get involved in something, and one of my brothers took me to the mosque right there. And I know, to borrow terminology from you, Viola, there were some internal contradictions of how people looked and saw the Nation of Islam, and but it was a time where big changes were coming to the struggle. And one of the biggest changes coming to the struggle, that black men and women were no longer afraid of white folks, no longer afraid of the police, making you shake and so forth. And this is what I saw in the nation as liberation. As far as you said, the last 20 years, it's difficult for me to talk about it, living in Africa, going back and forth to the States to be involved in activities in the nation, and traveling. And I thank Allah out of the 54 African countries, I've been blessed to visit 44 of them. And I just said last week, I'd never been to Rwanda, and they keep talking about what the Kagame is doing. So my next trip in July, if Allah blesses me to travel, I'm going to go to Rwanda and take that off the list. And so I've been involved in Africa. I'm going to tell this story and then I'll answer your question. Okay?
Yes, sir.
When I went to Aviation High School. Matter of fact, I'm in New York to go to all of the spots that I lived. I lived in Brooklyn twice on Tompkins, and then we moved to Bedford. And from Brooklyn, we moved out to South Jamaica. I guess our parents said there's some grass in front of the house, and even though we killed it all when we got there. And so I went there. But when I was in high school, I read an article in a paper called the Herald Tribune about these they didn't call us black Muslims then, these Muslims. And they talked about where they met at and what they were saying. And I wanted to go and see. So when I got in my senior year, you have to put something in your yearbook. And you have your name and whatever you aspire to do. So under my name, which was Larry Prescott, in my neighborhood they called me Junie, because I was a junior. And under it I put more school than Africa. And all of my crew members that I hung out, they were laughing because the picture in the book, as I got we used to wear a necktie at this school. We got a little brown uniform at Aviation High School. Anybody here go to Aviation? They had say that again?
Aviation High School was big time back in the day.
Yeah, it was in Manhattan first, Manhattan Aviation. Then they built a new one in Woodside, Queens. So the brothers looked at this picture when I took my yearbook. I was so proud that I had a yearbook and there was a picture in it. So the brothers were looking at it, and they were laughing because I had a tie on and had my head cocked a little. They said, look at Junie, trying to look like Martin Luther King and talking about Africa. And they thought that was the funniest thing, and they were falling out with a little weed to help them. But they were laughing at me because they say, here this man is with a necktie on trying to look like Martin Luther King talking about Africa. And lo and behold, I ended up going to Africa and living there for 12 years. So, and you want to know about the last 20 years, it's difficult for me to talk about it because so much has happened. And when I was writing notes this morning, I was writing the events that impact not only New York, but the entire country. And Minister Farrakhan, the gift of him is to draw people in, to wake people up. I told a brother one day, they were talking about it, they didn't necessarily like the minister. I said, I don't know anybody that has sit under his lecture, whether you agree or disagree with him, and not be moved and touched by what he said. And all over this country now, you see an awakening. These are babies that we produced in the conscious movement. These babies are out there. They had the seed planted in them. And then all it had to be was watered. So that's why they're in the street. That's why they stand toe-to-toe to the police. That's why these young people are looking for something to do other than just march. They want to do something that can make a change. So in the last 20 years, I've been, Brother Leroy, engaged in it and trying to help make that possible. In Africa, there was a lot of things going on in the countries that I went to. Viola, I don't know if you remember the 30th anniversary, I think, of the OAU. And you were in Cairo, and Shimaranga was there. And on the floor of the auditorium, we took pictures with Nelson Mandela and so forth. But that was a time I came to Cairo in the plane with Jerry Rawlins. And Jerry Rawlins was a special brother to us because, you know, he didn't know that much about the nation or Muslims other than the ones in his country. But he had a special liking, I hate to use a bad word, but a special admiration for Minister Farrakhan. And when we had our trouble in Nigeria, and it was big trouble for us in Nigeria, Khaled was there, we paid for the hall, we had got the people ready to come out, and Babangida, the then president, leader of Nigeria, canceled our meeting. And Minister Farrakhan ended up coming to Ghana. I had traveled with Lou Myers, and Lou Myers and I were scheduled to meet them in Senegal. But when we got to Senegal, they detained us and put us on a plane back to Paris. And so I called Minister Farrakhan in Nigeria. I said, Brother Minister, don't come to Senegal. They have something set up there. So the minister went to Ghana. And when he went to Ghana, Rollins had heard the same thing. Here's what they heard. That number one, we were not really Muslims. We were communists. And we were trying to create problems with the Muslim community in Nigeria. So Rollins heard this same story in Ghana. But he did something a little different. As he said, when they say do A, I do Z. He said, I just don't trust these white folks. And so he said, let me hear him for myself. And the minister spoke. Rollins listened to him. He sat there and listened to him. Then Rollins let him speak to his military leadership. And he got up and he said, I only find him to be a noble son of Africa. So that's how we got in with Ghana. And we were leaving. In that room was Attorney Lou Myers, the minister, myself, Khaled, and one other brother. And Rollins said, we all have an office in Africa. And the minister said, no. Rollins said, why don't you open an office in Africa and open it right here? I will help you. And that's how we ended up with an office in Ghana. And the impact in Africa was tremendous because people had heard something about the so-called black Muslims. And so they wanted to know more, which allowed us to engage. I didn't go there to try to open up a mosque. We opened up a Nation of Islam Information Center, and we brought literature in that we could give out in books about the struggle in America. And that's how we got our feet on the ground in Africa and Ghana in particular. Now, what have we been doing in the last 20 years? We've been trying to work out how we would do it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said separation. Right now, separation is more alive than ever. Marcus Garvey said back to Africa, you know, and all of the brothers who preached when the first descendants of slaves went to Liberia. And there's an interesting story that I just read about 2 months ago. The people of Liberia, printed I think in 19 69, and it showed about the slaves who left America and England to settle in Liberia, how they did it, how they worked with the indigenous people who had problems with them. Even to this day, they call them Americo-Liberians, the descendants of the slaves from the West. And but it was a difficult job to try to get them to work together. And the country that we had the most potential was Liberia, but we couldn't get a foothold in Liberia because of the internal dynamics that was going on between the descendants of the slaves and the indigenous people there. But it was showing that if you work and with the people, you can go there and build a reality. The Hebrew Israelites, who were always trying to get to Israel because they felt that was the promised land, they went to Liberia first. They stayed in Liberia for a while. They learned about Africa and so forth. And then by, I think, 1967 or 68, they made their move to journey to a part of so-called Israel, Palestine, called Dimona. And but even when they were on the ground in Liberia, there was this ongoing problem. So right now, with what is happening in the world, then this problem has to be worked on, because to me, we're going to have to leave here. When I was a young Muslim in the papers, selling the papers, Muhammad Speaks, I used to talk to the elders. And the elders would say to me, man, we don't want to go to Africa. You know, we ain't got nothing there. We ain't lost nothing in Africa. And they were death on going to Africa. They said, me go somewhere with all of these Negroes? Never in life. That's the way they saw it. But circumstances now has changed it. And it's been in the last 20 years that it has changed. People are thinking about it more so than ever. Right now, we got people in Senegal. We got people in Cote d'Ivoire. A brother who was in America, doing something, got busted here, went to jail. They kept him in jail for 5 years. When he got out, they deported him immediately back to Cote d'Ivoire. And he began to work. He set up a place there, and his French was excellent. He was from there. And so we have people there. Brother Frank is the brother who is there. We have people, as you know, in Ghana. We have some people in Togo. Benin, not too much. But Nigeria, we tried Nigeria, but it's a difficult task. It takes brothers and sisters who have tremendous tenacity of will to go into Liberia and set something up and make it solid and stay there. Now we have brothers in South Africa. The brother who was my assistant, Brother Earl, he went to Tanzania, Zanzibar in particular, met a young lady, and now I lost the assistant. So he's there. The brothers in Kenya, I have really not heard from them. In Ethiopia, there's a lot of expats that live there. So there's a different kind of movement on Africa, and you have to see it. And what I'm taking the scenic route to answer this question. I'm gonna land this plane, okay? What is happening right now in Africa and what you see in Ethiopia and the problems there, it takes a certain mindset to be able to go in there and try to help the brothers to solve this problem. We went to Ethiopia. Malays was the president or prime minister. I can't think of his last name right now. But he was the prime minister of Ethiopia. He was a strong Marxist, and we met with him when we were at Ethiopia. It was an excellent meeting because he talked about the possibility of some kind of marriage between Africans in the diaspora and those on the continent, and the things that could be done and can be done if we could only come together. But he talked about it a long time. I had no idea that he was sick and would soon die, but he ended the conversation that day, He said, now we talked about a lot of things, and we talked about the possibility of doing these things with the Nation of Islam and other organizations in America. He said, but now let's get out of the barracks and do it. And that's one of our greatest weaknesses. We talk about it, but we don't act on it, you know. Everything is not going to be smooth. You got to take that page I always mention from Sarah Palin when she was involved in politics. How she got there, I don't know. But she used to always say to her right-wing constituency, it says that don't quit or stop. Don't back up. Reload and go after it again. And that's what we have to do. Right now, after sitting at that television and looking at, I saw 2 of the 3 documentaries on Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you didn't see that and have a feeling, I went to Tulsa a long time ago, and they were telling me about it. Some things I believed and some I didn't believe. But after looking at that documentary, you know the cold-hearted white man, they say 300 people, but look how they kill those people and try to make out it didn't happen. That was the thing. And so if we're going to do something, we have to do it now. The time is right. The elders like myself have to pass it on to the younger people. We taught in the early days, D12 and all of the brothers and sisters who were in the struggle. And those seeds that we planted in those young people, now is the time to water them. That's what you see in the street. They didn't just jump up one day and become conscious and demonstrate. It was our work over the years, planting seeds in the minds of those young people. And now it's all coming to fruition, and we have to take advantage of it. We have to mentor the young people in this struggle. I mean, you got the police on the run right now in terms of what they can do and won't do. I watched some police in Harlem the other day. They were laying up against the car. We were double parked and triple parked. They didn't make a move towards the car, nothing. The car just sits there. I said, brother, I said, you know, we triple parked. Maybe you can pull over something. He said, it's going to be all right. With that mindset years ago, that would never happen. They would have came over there, let me see your license registration. No reason. But it's a changed atmosphere right now. So what have we been doing for the last 20 years, Brother Leroy? We are trying to take those seeds that we planted and point those brothers and sisters in a direction that we can make a difference for nearly 50 million black people in America. Thank you for your question.
And that's good. And want to go after the seeds as it relates to your involvement in the Nation of Islam, your evolving in the Nation of Islam, going back to the first 4 years of you being in the Nation of Islam. What were your challenges? What role did you play?
Well, my first years in the Nation, as I said, I joined right on 116th Street in 1960. Matter of fact, the exact date was February the 13th, 1960. And how I know that is that when the transition came about and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was no longer with us, all of the archival things, records and so forth that we had were being thrown out in Chicago. And I was working with Imam Muhammad then, and I was next door in the National House. And the brothers were out there. Main thing they were trying to get was the tapes of Malcolm. They threw them all out. And they were looking for the tapes. I went to the file, and I saw that the files had all of the information from different mosques. I went to mosque number 7, and I saw the date that I actually stood up and accepted in 1960. And my first years in the Nation was trying to learn, get active. One of the first assignments I got from Malcolm was Herman Ferguson was demonstrating. How many know the name Herman Ferguson?
Herman Ferguson.
You know, he was a brother. Matter of fact, when he was a principal of a school in Queens, It was the school that my wife went to. But Herman Ferguson and some more brothers, and Viola, you know more about them, who were strong brothers. I don't like to use the white man's term radical, but they were strong brothers, and they had made a decision that our real problem was Uncle Tom Negroes, always trying to please the white folks and looking like a good guy and smiling. So they felt that if we could eliminate them, then we could get the struggle going. So they caught them on tape and whatnot, and some of the brothers were arrested and some left the country. But Herman did finish his autobiography, didn't he? And so you should get it and read it, because it shows how the struggle grew. And my first assignment from Malcolm, other small thing, was to have a meeting in St. Albans on Linden Boulevard. I think we used to call the movie The Linden, something right off Farmers Boulevard, if you know that area. And Malcolm said in the restaurant, it was showing the three brothers that were there how to design a flyer and the ones he would accept and reject. And we had the meeting. Herman introduced Malcolm, and it was just a great meeting, but it brought a lot of brothers and sisters in Central Queens to attend the mosque. We had to go what we call uptown to go to the mosque. And that was one of the first things that I did as a young Muslim just coming in the mosque. The beauty of it is that we had a lot of brothers that were strung out on drugs. And I mean, strung out bad. One brother, I always tell his story, from Brooklyn. He was involved in drugs for 20 years. His mother spent thousands of dollars to try to do something with him, to clean him up. And it just didn't happen until he came to the mosque, heard the teaching, and he accepted. There was Brother Arvin. Matter of fact, he went to St. Louis with me. And he kicked his habit. He didn't go to no home. He kicked his habit. And when he kicked his habit, his mother watched him for a couple of months, and she saw that he was serious about this. She said, if anybody can clean my son up from heroin, then they must have something. She joined the nation, huh? That was it. So in the early days, we had to go after the brothers who we could get. Some brothers just looked at us as a cult or some organization. They had no feel for the resurrection and the redemption of the black man, cleaning him up from alcohol and dysfunctional family. They didn't have a feel for it, but the Nation of Islam could do it. And that's what we did, in the way we used to pack the mosque, because Malcolm was a gifted brother, no doubt about it. And at the mosque on Sunday, we would pack the mosque for him. You know, anywhere from 400 to 800 people, sometimes more. And on Sunday, those who were involved, there was no place that we wanted to be other than that mosque. And we had a captain, I just wrote their names down this morning, Captain Yusuf Shah, Maceo Haziz, Lieutenant Clarence, Edward 15, Norton, as you all know him. These brothers were strong helpers in the cause. And our duty was to pack the mosque, get people in the mosque. And we were able to do it because we had strong leadership. The thing that happened with Malcolm leaving the nation was a tragedy. It was a great hiccup. There's no doubt about it. People talk about what happened, and after they found out that the police had set up a hit on Malcolm, which y'all just read a couple of months ago, the brother didn't want the letter opened until he died, then you didn't see no real attempt to say, well, we were wrong about the Nation of Islam. The police set up the hit on Malcolm. And unfortunate as it is, this is the way it happened, and then they blamed us. So, Brother Leroy, I want to segue into Minister Farrakhan coming to New York, because that's what he was faced with. And quite naturally, the nationalist community had a problem with us, because that's the jacket that we carried. But we had no idea that the enemy had put that jacket on us to make sure that they could divide us and keep us apart. And when they put the thing on television, who killed Malcolm, the brother Rahman is his name, who was doing all the interviews. You notice in it, he didn't interview me because he knew that I had his number. I was waiting for him, so they sent somebody else to interview me. But his whole attempt was to say that the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm. And since this letter came out, it was 2 months ago, I believe. You can go online and read it, how this brother wrote what happened, how they set it up and everything. And he said he wanted it only released when he died because he was worried. He knew the police department. He was worried about retaliation from them against his family. So he didn't want it. And once they released it, you would think that the papers would come out and say that the killing of Malcolm was a hit by the New York Police Department. They didn't come out with none of that. Maybe a beep. So it shows you how treacherous they are. They set up, and the killing of Malcolm was said, they attempted it a few times. And even the brother who they had to change coats outside of the Audubon Ballroom. And but they never said, they're not going to say they caught us red-handed and so forth. They're going to either stick to their lie. I talked to Brother Norman Muhammad Aziz a few times. He lives outside of Baltimore. We worked together in the FOI, the daytime FOI. And he said that he's not looking for no money. He said, I want my name cleared. He said, I want my name cleared for the sake of my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. I don't want them to carry the baggage that your grandfather or your father killed Malcolm when I didn't do it. And he said that, so they come in offering me money and all that. I don't want none of that. I want them to clear my name and say that he did not kill Malcolm. And the way he the way they set him up, I don't have time to go into it, even the night they arrested him. And there's a few of us that know for sure that he wasn't on that set. Number one, he was a lieutenant with the Mosque. How would they let him in the front door? Everybody in the nation knew Thomas, and they knew him. They knew both of them. So they knew him, so they wouldn't let him in the door for sure. And but that is one of the internal struggles that we had all of these years. And when Minister Farrakhan came to New York in 1965, that's the jacket he had to wear. And people didn't like him. Some people who were young and didn't know the history, but they put this jacket on him, and we struggled. And the work of the minister going to small places, speaking to groups. We thank G2Yusi because he let us come in. He could have took a position of the nationalist community. No, we believe that the nation was involved in the killing of Malcolm, and we're not going to have a speech here by the minister. And those brothers, all of those brothers were in that. And what they really wanted is clarity. Either the nation and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was responsible, or the enemy was responsible to destroy us. They wanted to kill two birds with one stone. Destroy Malcolm and put this jacket on Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan. But I must say that we worked hard to lift that jacket. The minister went places all over the city and then all over the country. Most brothers and sisters, and I know, brother, I'm going to cut it off so you can ask your question.
Clear, brother.
Most brothers and sisters, when they went out to try to get people to come to the mosque, the thing they would get, y'all killed Malcolm. Y'all killed Malcolm. And that was a hard pill. Malcolm was the hero of the struggle. He was the strength of the struggle and so forth. And people loved him. If they think that we killed him, then how would they feel about us? That was the uphill struggle that Minister Farrakhan had, and it was not easy. You know, it was not easy at all. And I'm a witness. You know, I was here. I was in the ministry class under Malcolm when the minister came. He asked me to help him in the ministry, and I watched what he struggled with. You know, people loved him because, and I'm saying the people in the nation loved him because of the strength that he showed to uphold the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when the enemy was trying to drag it through the mud. Thank you, brother. You all have to forgive me, you know.
Yes, sir.
Well, I learned from the best. Malcolm was long-winded. Minister Farrakhan is long-winded. Average subject is 3 hours. Fidel Castro is long-winded. Muammar Gaddafi was very long-winded. Fidel delivered the speech at the church on the Upper West Side. I can't think of the church. No, not Abyssinia.
Riverside.
Riverside.
Wait a minute, Riverside. But this was at Abyssinia that night. Fidel spoke until 2 in the morning, so when he finished up, he said, "Good morning." So go right ahead.
No, you hit on a number of things that need just a little bit flesh on them, and that is the directive to go after the drug addicts.
Right.
And okay, what was in that we need to know and understand?
First, this thing on television about Harlem. What's the name of it? God. They mentioned that some of it was fictitious but taken over. But all of it was really messed up. I don't know, I want to use another word, but I will not use that word in here. And if you look at it, the whole thing was to see the sisters got brothers in room. I've been in the nation since 1960. We never had no rooms, and I got witnesses here where the sisters were in there trying to clean up drug addicts, you know. And so that was fictitious. But how we went after the drug addicts, Brother Leroy, is that we believed that this teaching could get them off drugs and heal them. And we proved it by brothers coming in who went cold turkey, you know, I mean, and cleaned themselves up. And all we had to do is keep them close, stay with the brothers. And when we went out, go out with them, let them hear us teaching to the brothers on the street corner. Minister Farrakhan did something in New York that was almost like unbelievable. He gave the brothers in our ministry class, I was over the ministry class, bullhorns and say, you know, we have a thing in the nation that everybody wants that spot right up there. They come in, it's natural, don't feel bad about it. You come in and you sit there and listen to the minister up there blazing, you know, and he's cooking. He said, wow, I like to do that. I think I can do it. So they want to teach. So the minister said, well, I got this post, but I'm going to give you the streets. You got a whole city. Get you some bullhorns, go out there on the corner and teach. And we did that across the city, including Staten Island. I was writing down, Brother Ben 2X was in charge of Staten Island. But we did that. We went out there to talk to the people. And it was a takeoff on 125th Street and 7th Avenue. I had a beautiful picture of Pork Chop Davis and Malcom X. Somebody liberated the pictures from my collection. I went to look for it one day, it was gone. And I know the brothers who liberated, they prayed that Allah would forgive them. But it was a takeoff on 125th Street, in that street corner there. But we went to street corners throughout Harlem. And our focus was the path of the least resistance is to get the brothers who were on drugs. I have a famous story of a brother who grew up with me in South Jamaica. I was living in Hollis then. I had moved from South Jamaica to Hollis, and he was on the street corner. We grew up together, and he just got out of the service. He was strung out. And his name is Nuruddin Faiz, Victor 7X. Anybody remember that name?
What's his name?
Victor 7X, Nuruddin Faiz. He died recently in Florida. So he was saying, oh man, so and so on. We used to smoke together, and we both liked music. And I asked him what was he doing. He said, I'm looking for a job, man. I got to get a job. That's what he kept saying. I said, I think I can get you a job. He said, you can? I said, meet me at this bookstore on 116th and Lenox Avenue. And he came to the bookstore. That was my bookstore. And I started talking to him. I got, how many remember Carrot Cake Henry? Henry 24. Henry 24, Carrot Cake Henry. Usman. And so I took him up to his bakery. It was on 110th. And I asked the brother to give him a job. I said, only way that we'll get you the job, you got to attend a meeting with me. It was a Wednesday or Friday. He came to the meeting, and he wanted to get that job, so he came back to the meeting, and Allah blessed him to come into the nation, and it turned his life around. And I said that he was out there, and it turned his life around. He's another one that inspired his whole family, including his mother, to join the Nation of Islam. Does anybody know the brother I'm talking about? Victor? Okay.
Yeah, Minister Victor.
Minister Victor, that's right. So the focus, brother, was to go after those brothers who were out there and doing bad, and it proved the strength of the message when we could bring them out of the street, clean them up, get them off drugs, get them a job, and that's what we did. And I think that Allah blessed us with success in it.
And I have another question, what you found in Brother Victor, what you found in Brother Stanville and other brothers was gold that otherwise would be looked at as trash on 125th Street and Lexington Avenue or Park Avenue. Those brothers that we see now,
right.
There's gold there. And it's the belief that the black man could be redeemed. I'm just summarizing and playing it back. And so it wasn't, one of the images of the Nation of Islam is that it had prostitutes and drug addicts and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't find that when I came in. I found upright people, and the brothers who had been on drugs, I couldn't even tell. I would have to find out from somebody on the street, say, do you know so-and-so? And I said, do you know him? So going back to when under the administration of Malcolm, 800 people being at the mosque, Minister Farrakhan, Minister Louis X coming in and struggling with the image of the nation supposedly having killed Malcolm. What difference did the radio program make, and what difference did the attack on the mosque in 1972 make in terms of attendance?
Okay. I had written in my notes, I'm glad you brought it up, the attack on the mosque in 1972, because there's a lot of new brothers and sisters in the nation that don't have the details or know about it. It's something they heard about. We don't have it written, out so that people can study it. But the attack on the mosque was kind of a turning point because the police wanted to come in the mosque. One of them was killed. My story always was the fact that when those brothers started running down the step, hollering Allahu Akbar, and the police were inside that door, then you use this, and the police were inside that door, that policeman probably killed himself. He said a bunch of black men. I mean, already when they see 10, they see 100 of us. And then they wanted to put the jacket on one of us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we killed him, but we told them there was no officer in distress in the building.
Right.
We got a school going on upstairs. They said, well, we're going to go in and check. I said, no, you can't come in here.
That's right.
See, they expected that the brothers were going to be some afraid to death Negroes would put their hands up and so forth. But they started whipping their behind and drove them out of the building. And so this is a different kind of black man. And then 10,000 or more people in Harlem, we sent the word out. I was downtown picking up some books. The place had just got in some red books, and they go so quick, they were going. So I went to pick it up, and I get a call on the phone that the mosque is under attack. I went through every red light that was on, got uptown, and the people of Harlem came out, surrounded the mosque, and the policemen had to come to us, because if they would pull the police back, would we turn over a brother, Louis 17. And they said that they would hold them and, this and that. But the minister went down, got on top of a car, and told the people to stay there until we resolved this issue inside. And the people stayed there. But it was a turning point, because it said to black men and women that you don't have to be afraid. Stand up. I mean, your family wants somebody who will stand up and deal with the circumstances and not be running away, lined up across a wall and whatnot. And sometimes I look at it, I'd say that you turn to him and say, well, why don't you just shoot me? Why don't you just shoot me? And you've got to take the fear that you once had for them and put that fear in them. So that was a turning point. Then we had a tremendous rally at the 369th Armory. And the people support, if you can remember, Michelle, who owned the bookstore, he was there, he spoke. The Muslims from 72nd Street, the leader, Abdul Rauf, he was there, and then the leaders. And when they attacked the mosque, Aretha Franklin came and asked the minister, did Jesse Jackson come yet to show his support? And the minister said no. And she said, don't worry, he'll be here. And so Jesse a few days later came. But it was like a turning point of how people even viewed the minister and the Nation of Islam and the brothers in the nation. So,
okay. You mentioned, we term that attack as an attack on the mosque, and it was. However, one of the facts that's not covered in outside media is that the school was going on at the time.
Right.
So it was the boys were leaving and the girls were about to come in. That's just not a correction, but an ad-lib to that. The University of Islam, what I understand is that it started in, we're talking about do for self, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad saying we must set an example, independent education, that Sister Francine's mother started the university, the first class of the university in her apartment. I don't know, Francine is married to Brother Guy.
Right. Yeah,
and then they moved to Brooklyn.
That's right. I don't know the history. I don't know that part of the history other than what I heard, but there was a sister named Joyce who picked it up. She was from Long Island. Her husband was our baker of the bean pie.
Brother Charles.
Brother James.
James?
Yeah, he was and I was telling some people going over this history that we were doing 5,000 pies a day. We had 3 bakery locations, bean pie. And the brother listened to him and said, oh man, that's a myth. See, you don't want to believe it, and it shows you how negative you think about yourself and what you can do. We were baking those pies, and every store in the black community, there were bean pies. Every one of them. And Brother James was really a genius. When pies were like 1 or 2 days past their date, he took those pies and made bean cookies. And he was really a giant. So the school started, you say, in her home. I'm not familiar with that. But as soon as they moved to Long Island, and Sister Joyce, who was over the school, is
Sister Lois is here.
Sister Lois is here? Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Lois. The school was really something. I mean, it took real strong sisters and brothers. Her late husband, Brother Bert, helped us with the school. Then we were in Long Island first. Then we went to Brooklyn for a while. Is that right? And then finally we ended up here. And even when we came here, we still kept the other schools going because we didn't have enough room. But the very fact that we were able, the inspiration from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that inspiration got Minister Farrakhan on the case to make and build a strong school here in number 7. How many school buses did we have? Was it 4 or 5? Five school buses. And bringing our children from across the city. Yeah. One of the things that happened at the mosque, the biggest Muhammad Ali Day in this country was here in New York City. And Muhammad Ali came, and he came to the mosque, and we had a stage outside, and he spoke to the people. Then he went down to City Hall, saw the mayor. I think Bean was the mayor then. And then he went to the jails and spoke in the jail. That impacted the city, and it put a different kind of jacket on the Nation of Islam.
I want to go back to the ministry class. The uniqueness of that ministry class, from my experience, was that if the main minister, whomever that was over that particular mosque at that time, whether it's 7C, 7B, or 7, the brothers who would replace they had a dynamism, they had an attraction power of them. Minister Victor was great, Howard was great, Brother Charles was great. It was just talk about what was happening in the ministry class that would enable those brothers to have such a dynamic force that they did have.
Right. It's a good question. First, Malcolm had a ministry class. We had 7 brothers, 2 fell out. We had 5. We met every Tuesday night. Thank you. We met every Tuesday night and sometime every other week. But Malcolm was an inspiration to Minister Farrakhan to make helpers for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so when the minister came to New York, he continued the ministry class and set it up, and it became very strong. It's interesting that you mentioned the ministry class. We had 3 classes, actually. We had the senior class. That was brothers like Brother Alton, Brother James 7X, William 50, we called them, right? These were the brothers who were like in the lead and helping the minister. We had Arthur 14X, and we had James 7X Nige. And the minister in that class, he would always say, my leader and teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, needs helpers. He needs those who can go out in the field. And so that's what the class was, driving force behind the class. That we just can't sit up there and hope we get a Sunday on the roster and people congratulating us. We got to go out in the field and open up and begin to teach people where we find them. James 98, we just got through talking about him. He was out on Long Island in the car that brothers brought. Anybody remember the minister in Nassau County? We have nobody here. And we had a mosque in Westbury, Wyandanch, Long Island. But these are the brothers that were in that class. And the minister said that the brothers have an obligation to do what we call as fishing. We just got in the class, but the biggest fishermen, I'll use that term, for the mosque should be the ministry. And so that's how that ministry class, it was an important class. And then when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad left us and Imam Muhammad came in, the ministers that he used around the country, most of them came from Mosque number 7. They picked them from Mosque number 7 because our training was unique. We were good teachers, no doubt about it. And I'm not blowing my horn, okay? But we were excellent teachers, and we could go into any city with what we learned in New York and set up and move that city forward. So Brother Abdul Alim Bashir. Who knows who that is?
Off the 14th. Off the 14th.
About 2 weeks ago, we were together. He lives in Atlanta with one of his daughters, and in a conversation, he said that we had something special in New York. He said, like no other place. And I said, well, Brother Imam, what was special? He said, how we felt about each other. Of course, we had problems. Of course, every now and then you want to cuss a brother out. But there was something special about New York, and it was based on the progress that we made. It was based on the attendance at the mosque, the businesses that we had, and it was a quality of brotherhood and sisterhood that you couldn't find anywhere else. New York was special, and New York was special to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as far as raising money, the sales of the fish and so forth. We were always on top. The sale of the paper, we were always on top. So it was a special, I guess the word may be character in New York City. And the love of the brotherhood and sisterhood in New York was special. So you can't let that go and sink down to the bottom. That's why when brothers and sisters use baby language in a conversation, baby language is cussing each other out with a MF here and a MF. You can't use that. It lowers you. You know, somebody said, well, he needs a good cussing out, you know. But you couldn't do that, so you had to show love and appreciation for one another. And we were struggling, but there was a spiritual quality to it, that if you let go, everything else goes. When the spiritual quality keeps you on the right path, that you don't go out when you finish at the mosque, go home and get you some whiskey and get drunk or something. You didn't do that. There was a certain quality of life that was produced inside of the mosque by our love and respect for each other.
That character, just in terms of a short embellishment on that character that you mentioned in terms of the ministry class that they had, what were the ingredients in that? What was given in that class that gave them the ability to do what they did?
Well, I would put it to our minister. Our minister, number one, and people can attest, they may disagree with him on this and that, but they can attest to the fact that he's a good man with a good heart, a good soul. And he tried to transfer that to the brothers. And when we had disputes with one another, or somebody felt that they were wrong, he was the kind of healing salve to heal those kind of wounds among the believers and send them back on the path. You know, a brother said to me one time, him and a brother were in an argument for years. They didn't like each other. You know, I told him, brother, don't act like people who say, I'm never going to speak to him again. That's crazy. Say, I want to find a way to heal that. And healing that, you can move forward. You know, you can't build an organization with hatred and cussing each other out, walking a mosque this size. There's not no big mosque. And there's a brother or sister, you got a different, and turn your head the other way and don't speak to him. That's Negro mess. You know, we call it nigger mess in the street. No, we building something. We working on something. And you can't get hung up in that kind of madness. So I think the quality is, you know, Minister Farrakhan is a brother that shows a lot of love and respect. I remember all of the different people who would come to his office and how he would treat them and show them the kind of respect. And if they came to ask him to do something, if they came and asked for some money for their projects in their organization, the minister would do it. He just would do it. Some of us may have had some difference with him, and the minister always said that's an investment in the lives of those brothers and sisters who have struggled out there in the street, struggle against this enemy. So that's the kind of person he was.
I want to go back to you. Your love of history would always come out in your presentations, and that's that was an attraction power for us in the audience. Where did you get that love for history, the specifics, the stories, etc.?
Well, let me go back to elementary school. When I lived in the South Bronx. Anybody know where the Patterson Projects is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, where I lived in the Patterson Projects. And I had, my third grade teacher was a black woman named Miss Anderson. My fourth grade was a Jewish woman named Miss Myers. And Miss Myers introduced me to Robinson Crusoe. I had to read the book. And I liked it. I liked the feel of reading, but these two teachers were on me about reading and Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer and that stuff. And through that reading, I began to appreciate history. But the thing that turned me on the most when I joined the nation was Malcolm always went to the rostrum with a book. And some of the books that he told us about and would even read out, those books stick in my mind right now. 60 years later, When the Rising Tide of Color, the book, I'm trying to think of the name.
J. Rogers.
Yeah, J. Rogers books, all of them. And so whenever we would hear him blazing from the rostrum and talking about history, it inspired us to do the same thing. And that's how I got into it. And even in 1963, I started selling Holy Qurans. I wasn't selling no other book because the Qurans were so hard to get then. But that's what got me into reading and history. And I always felt that when you deliver a lecture, if your lecture is all one-sided, if you stay with the Bible and just keep preaching there, you don't give the people a sense for history. I found a book, The Bible and History, how to teach history from the Bible and not just quoting the facts from it. But that's how I got into the love of history. And then, the love of the history of the nation. I was into that. I wanted to know what happened here and there and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad struggle. So that's how I got into history and mixing it into my lectures.
So we're going to hit some points real quick in terms of time. I want to go back to Captain Yusuf Shah, Brother Maceo, and you covered the minister and his staff to a degree. Each laborer, Sister Captain Amina Rasul, each laborer had a staff that was, in the words, dynamite. They were tight. They were effective. Explain, the origins of that. That was when you came into the mosque. You found an organization, not just a group. That's where I'm going. With the essence of that and the possibility of duplicating that or copying the principles.
Well, there's two things. When I was writing my notes, I wrote just about what you're talking about now. I had Minister Farrakhan, Shah, Maceo Haziz. And if you like the history of number 7, Malcom X by Dr. Manning. A lot of stuff I disagree with him on, because before he wrote the book, we never really got along that well. But if you want a history of number 7, some things, are questionable, because if you were not there, but he talks about it. He talks about Maceo, he's a jazz piano player coming from Cleveland. He was from Cleveland. He talks about the internal dynamics in the mosque, and because when Malcolm was killed, people were on eggshells. They didn't know who to trust, and they thought sure, as much as he loved Minister Farrakhan, they thought he was Louis X then. They thought sure that Louis X was going to go with Malcolm. But Louis X stayed with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that was how we were able to move forward. But all of those historical overviews of what was happening with Mosque number 7. Dr. Manning covers quite a bit of it in his book, Malcom X. I haven't read Les Payne's take. Has anybody read Les Payne's? I think it did. Well, if you mind, how was it?
Well, thorough. I had some questions that we have discussed with you. I think it's accurate in terms of the history, Malcolm's history, both sides. It's less pain is less accusatory, or he writes Malcolm as he saw him and as he went through documents over the last 20 years. Because he said it took him that long to write the book. And then his daughter, when he passed, his daughter finished.
Yeah, because the mosque itself, number 7, just not like a mosque in Cleveland or Seattle, Washington, or even in Los Angeles, but it's a particular special mosque. I have to say it like that. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna be safe. You want me to take the mask off? Shamima, can I digress a little? My oldest child, my oldest daughter, in my senior years, especially in the last 2 months or 3 months when I was really very sick and weak, and praying to Allah I get my strength back. It was my daughter Samima, who I call her my handler. She makes my mind up for me. And I know they've been through a lot with me, but the point I was making about the history of number 7 is a very important history. I hope that Brother Zayed is doing something. I don't know if he's doing it for his PhD, but Mosque number 7, 1965 to 1975. But it's a very important history for the Nation of Islam. And all of the young brothers and sisters who have skills, then you should go and work on it. You say, well, he already wrote a book on it. How many books are there on George Washington? I mean, come on, Napoleon. Look at how many books on Napoleon written all the way around the world. So you got a view. And it needs to be put in writing so people can go over it, look at it. And I know that people don't read much today. I mean, you get through with the Facebook and Instagram and all of that. So books you just push on the side. But there's nothing like quiet time with a book. The books don't age, but they may want you not to read as much, but you should read. It sharpens your mind. The brothers in prison, when they have nothing but time to read, they develop a focus on what they want to do with their life. So the history of Mosque number 7 is important. I know that Brother Manan has made an attempt at it, but you have to catch the elders before they leave. One of the reasons I'm sitting here now is because I didn't know whether I would make it as sick as I was. And people said we missed a lot of the brothers who soldiered with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in number 7. They passed away. And no one had an opportunity to sit down and put a mic under them and listen to them and then put that in writing so that our children could see it. My daughter made a trip around New York and places that she just missed or didn't see or didn't know about. But we went to every spot that we lived and where the mosque was. the Corona Mosque in particular, there's a lot of history there. And so I think, Brother Leroy, you were part of that history, you and Brother Wayne, because the radio show had a tremendous impact on this city. And even though people still had that little problem with the minister, they listened to that program on Sunday. And there was something that fed them on Sunday. And then Sunday night, it came back on BLS with the Donald Byrd piece, Cristo Redento. It came with that music playing in the background. I mean, it was what you look forward to tonight in case you missed the minister in the daytime. So I think I answered 2 questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead. Do you have your mic? Does he have a mic?
Man. Oh, this is people, places, and things. And this is quick mentions in terms of the impact that they had on you and the Nation of Islam. And I'm going to run down some names. Anyone that's missing is only because I don't remember. Jocko, Attorney Jocko.
Okay. Attorney Edward Jocko. He was a lawyer in New York City. And when you see early pictures and so forth, he's in there. He defended, there's a family called the Mollett family. They were like anchors in the mosque. The Kenners and the Mollett family. They lived in East Elmhurst. And when the police raided the house, and the sisters, they're teaching an MGT class, and the police were at the door banging, try to get in. They got bottles of water and threw it down on the police and so forth. And so when they were brought to court, it was Attorney Edward Jocko, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, hired him, kept him on staff, and you could read about him. He was a tough attorney, and he defended the Muslims. And you can look him up, Attorney Jocko.
Professor V. Professor V. I think it's V, the brother that came in and taught martial arts.
Moses Power?
No, not Moses. He taught. He was a teacher.
I don't
He came from Philippines. Don't know. Okay. Ilombe Brad.
Yeah, one of my heroes, and a brother who really got me interested in Africa. I remember one day we were meeting with him in a hotel, and Sister Viola, you may have been there. It was on 51st Street, and it was in the middle of the struggle in the Congo. And the minister was trying to describe an area in the Congo, and Ilambe called out the area where it was at. And I was just impressed with his knowledge. When we were in Namibia, I was blessed to go to the Independence Day celebration, and Kwame and Ilambe were there. And I never forget, Ilambe came, he said, "Well, look who is here." And then a part of my personal history, my daughter died in Ghana. I was on my way to speak on behalf of Minister Farrakhan at the service. And I was preparing, and I get a call from one of my daughters screaming and hollering and saying that Samaya is dead. I said, "What are you talking about?" And I got Minister Hafiz to speak for me at the service for Ilambe, and I took a plane immediately to Africa to look after the situation with my daughter. But he is my brother and friend. We were in Jamaica at a conference, and we got closer. I mean, now he had his differences with the nation, but he could work with us. We could talk together. We didn't go down the street and say, "Here comes Ilambe. I don't speak to that brother." I mean, come on, are we children or something? The brother was in the struggle. He was knowledgeable. And he has a right to his disagreement with the nation, but I think that he grew to love and respect the minister. And you have to remember that a lot of people who were doing things, they looked to the minister. I mean, United Black Front, when they started, it was the minister who would draw the crowd for them to speak to the people. And So Elambe was a beautiful brother, and may his soul rest in peace.
Carver Federal Savings and the loan that they gave for the building on 116th Street.
Right. Yeah, they gave the loan.
Yeah, that facilitated the building.
No, that's not the way it happened.
Okay.
When the mosque was burned down the night, that Monday night after the fruit class, Malcom was killed on that Sunday, the 21st, and the mosque burned. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad purchased the corner. And we got some construction people, but we were looking for some, and we couldn't find a black company, so we hired a white one. But all of the nationalists on 125th Street opposed it. They talked about they were going to picket the mosque, but they didn't know the details. And so when they talked about there's a group of nationalists, I don't know who was in the leadership of that talked about they were going to have a picket line because they didn't want no white construction people to come in Harlem and be building the mosque. And they felt our position was wrong. But you can't make decisions when you're short on details. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad found a company. They came and they built the mosque. The loan that we got was to do other things, not build a mosque. Okay. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad literally paid for the building of the mosque, and we helped as much as we possibly could.
Brother Sabbath.
He was an architect, beautiful architect and a lieutenant. I just want to say this, Captain Yusuf Shah, and most of you have heard of him. Shah said that if they come down here to picket the mosque, it'll be their last picket sign. So Sabbath, Shah realized that we had a lot of brothers in the mosque that were well educated. And there was a group, and you were in that group. Brother Leroy is a brother that is very quiet, but definitely an intellect.
Yes.
And so what Shaw did, he got a group of brothers, he put Sabbath over them. Sabbath was an architect. And all of the brothers who had degrees and felt uncomfortable on the corner with papers, they did. But the love of the nation, they would do it. But Sabbath is the one who handled that squad. And the older brothers and so forth, he handled them, and he did an excellent job. He died about 2 years ago now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Sabbath.
Brother Sabbath. Going back into the dynamics of being in, and quote, a group, and dealing with envy and jealousy, dealing with ego. And this is not something that's just thought of, but it's in Message to the Black Man in America, where he deals with a chapter on envy and jealousy destroys from within.
Right.
And that's one kind of opposition, self-opposition, and then there's the opposition coming from the outside.
Right.
The enemy trying to undo work that we did. Your comment.
Well, we know that the mosque had a lot of enemies, and then you had the boss, Bureau of Special Service from the New York Police Department, and a couple of brothers joined the mosque. They were sent here to listen, to spy, and report, but they ended up getting converted. And they were, I can think of two of them right now. One of them became the assistant secretary to me when I was the secretary of the Bronx Mosque. And when the enemy comes, he wants to get in the secretarial department because that's where all of the facts and the figures and the money and this and that. And so he got in the secretarial department. And I don't want to call his name, but he's still alive. He's living in the Caribbean. And the only thing that raised an eye of suspicion, I was his minister, was when he told me he was getting married and he was going to Peru. Black folks just wasn't going to Peru. We got enough black people in Peru. There's black Peruvians, quite a few of them. But that raised the eye of suspicion. And so when we were rebuilding, we were on a trip in the Caribbean. The minister wanted to give us a little rest. I went into a store, and there he was. And so they had moved him to the police department in the Caribbean because they may have felt that it was not safe for him to be working in whatever capacity he was in New York. I told the minister that this is the brother that was working for the police department. But boss was all over. They were in the groups, all of the nationalist groups here and so forth. And their job was to disrupt. That's right, disrupt, cause chaos, cause brother to argue with one another, envy and jealousy. That's what their job was. And they couldn't find that we were running guns, selling dope, that we were blowing up buildings. They couldn't find none of that. But that's what they were hoping to find, so that they could come down and try to squash us completely.
Captain Yusuf Shah would advise us to stay in our lane. And dealing with yourself, you are a trusted aide to Brother Minister Farrakhan. In fact, Minister James says that no one could possibly match your assistance to Brother Minister Farrakhan but you. And he paid the highest respect to you. That was earlier today on the phone. That how do you, when you reflect, how do you submerge one's feeling, wow, you know, this brother's growing large and I can do this, maybe I can be over my own mosque in another city. How does that?
Well, brothers who wanted a rostrum, I mentioned it a little before, they can go to other cities. They can go to a city and see what they can do. Nobody is stopping them, but it's better for them to go to another city and open a mosque instead of staying here in New York and just creating trouble for everybody, trying to get their way. And jealousy and envy is something else. Yes, it destroys from within. And so brothers who want to go to other cities, let them do it. But New York is just the kind of magnet, you just want to be here. Yes, so you got to make a decision. Go to another city and cheap term, do your thing, open up the mosque and see what it is, see what the struggle is. When problems come up from the believers, do you have the tolerance, the patience, and even the wisdom to solve those problems? Do you have it? Minister Farrakhan in that area, he's gifted. I mean, gifted. And his idea of bringing people together and saying, you don't have to fight over this issue, let's discuss it. And the best knowledge and the best ideas should always rule. But yes, you're right, that does happen because there's no church that is perfect. I'm sure that Calvin Butts has had his share of problems up there at Abyssinia. We're human. So, I'm sure that D12 has had your internal dynamics. It goes with the territory. And but the thing is, what is the objective? Where are we going? What do we want to accomplish? That's the most important thing.
And this is winding it up, brother, among some who have been in the nation for quite some time, you will hear the seed, I call it a virus, what are we doing? And how come we're not doing this? That the directive of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on page 174 of working as a group, coming together, seems to me to be a window and a door for individuals to do for self as members of the Nation of Islam, as opposed to waiting around. Talk to that in terms of when I came in 1966, that there was all types of efforts to do for self, nurseries, herbal stores, Brother Leon and Sister Gladys and others. Speak to that energy that was there. Speak to what we need to be looking at today ourselves.
Okay. Well, first of all, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad never blocked the individual for going into business and doing for self. He encouraged it, as a matter of fact. He encouraged that the brothers and sisters should do that. But some brothers and sisters feel that it should belong to the nation. You know, that's not the right idea. He didn't say do for self and everything that you build should belong to the nation. That's a little narrow in your thinking. But you need to use your expertise and show the world that I was encouraged to do for myself or build this business or become a professional by the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And in New York, I never saw or heard Minister Farrakhan discourage any brother or sister for doing something for themselves. And even if people thought it conflicted with what the nation was doing, bean pies are a prime example. I would like to see a good national bean pie, but there were brothers and sisters making pies while we were baking pies and supplying the city. He didn't say, no, you can't bake pies.
That's right.
So that's not the correct, but doing for self. It means that you got to do something for yourself. Don't sit around and wait for something to happen. We use the term waiting for the mystery God to do something for me. I got to do something for myself. And the brothers and sisters were definitely encouraged.
The dynamic of working with Minister Farrakhan and his being in his presence and being taken to another level of production, self-production oneself. Talk about that.
Well, let me say this. The minister, in my opinion, and knowing him and being with him and watching him under circumstances that, you know, most of you couldn't believe, and the pain that he endured when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad left. And in this city, there was not enough show of appreciation for what he built here. I mean, we had 21 entities. We had, you look at that corner, we had Brother Fruit, if you remember that. Then the brothers opened up their individual steak and take. I mean, I was his assistant. I had 3 of them. But brothers opened up their steak and take, and Brother Melvin. Is Brother Melvin still around?
He's around.
Is that right?
He's around.
Make sure you give him the greetings for me. He came from Buffalo with the idea to steak and take. You know, and many people don't know that. But we were encouraged to do things for ourselves like that. We had 2 gas stations. One was owned by a brother named Jervy, and the gas station we had, the Mosque had. Most people didn't know about that. We had us, you forgot about, we had, when there was a gas shortage, our brothers and sisters could get gas at our station. We gave them preference, you know. That was not talked about. When we built the mosque in Corona, and that big basement, I don't know whose idea it was, but we got one of the biggest ovens that they make, and we had to chisel down further in the basement, and that oven was turning out those pies. And brothers used to buy the pies wholesale and go and set themselves in business. Nobody bothered them, say that this belongs to the nation. So I can tell you for surety that brothers and sisters who had the entrepreneurial spirit, they could do that. And then you have the soldier. He wants a soldier. He wants to bring people in the mosque. He wants to build a mosque. Then you got to give him the freedom to do that. You can't, tie him up. And Shah said everybody should have a job until you can make one for yourself. And some people felt that the brothers just needed a briefcase full of Muhammad Speaks and don't do nothing else. But he got a family to take care of, got children to feed, winter clothes to buy. So we encourage the brothers in that way. So that's doing for self.
The last question, Brother Minister, is Minister Farrakhan's graphs of theology. When you hear him, when I hear him, I hear an individual who could preach in any church.
That's right.
And the same thing applies to his ministry class. The ability, I didn't experience that when I came into the mosque. It may have been there, but I didn't experience it. But where I'm going with the question is, talk to his graphs of theology and his ability to transcend all groups with that knowledge.
Right. Good question. I'm going to quote from T.D. Jakes. They were at the funeral of Rosa Parks, I believe it was, and they had T.D. Jakes lined up to speak after the minister, and T.D. Jakes called the brother who was handling it and said, "Don't put me after Minister Farrakhan." So now he's a big preacher, but he didn't want to follow Minister Farrakhan. And so Minister Farrakhan's ability in the churches across this country, and there was a time before this enemy poisoned the atmosphere that churches would invite the minister to speak more so than some of the mosques. But not only his ability in the church, but his ability to go into a Muslim community, of Muslims who say they don't like us. Once say, "You're not real Muslims." I'd like to see some of those brothers. What do you mean by real Muslim? I guess you're a real Muslim. But he used to go to the mosques and to the churches, and he used to stir those churches up. And preachers in this country would take their lead off the minister. They would listen to his tape, and they would take their lead in their preaching.
Still do.
And still do. And that's the gift of the minister's ability to reach out to people.
So this is the absolute last question. How did the invitation develop for the minister to speak at West Point?
Good question. The minister spoke at West Point, and he also spoke at John Jay School for Criminal Justice. But it was a student who was attending West Point that got the invitation for the minister to speak. And he, whatever opposition came up, he overcame that opposition, and the minister spoke. We just about 6 months ago found the tape from West Point, and I don't know if the minister's going to release it or not.
Wow.
But there's 2 tapes that you should hear. One is John Jay Criminal School of Justice, is that it?
Yes, sir.
And the police were in there standing on the wall like the brother with their guns on their side and rocking back and forth. And the minister wore them out. but that's how the invitation came up one of the students. Before we close out, I wanted to, what time is it right now?
It is 3:45.
Oh, okay, 2 to 4. We all right?
3:45.
Okay. I want to do something. I was talking about young people, and my children watched me all of their lives and grew up. My daughter, who got a couple of degrees and went to Howard, and she has really been a helper to me in taking roots to Africa. And I hope that Allah has blessed me to lay enough seeds in her brain that she will continue this struggle for what the Nation of Islam has offered my family. The other day we went to go in front of Amina Rasul, Sister Captain Clotel's house, and then we went up to Shah. They lived on the same block. And these brothers and sisters who helped in the Nation of Islam, who had families, and the thing that all of us wanted more so than anything, to see them blossom in Islam and hold on to faith that we have embraced. So I want to ask my daughter, could she come up? We still 15. Is she here? This is my daughter, Sulema Aziz. Let me just say a short story. They called me overseas in Libya. They called me the man of one more thing.
Yeah.
So I want to say that Brother Director Clark, as you know, Muhammad Sadiq, he finished his book, and he kept calling me before he finished it and went to press. He wanted me to read it and the minister to see what he said. Some things that you would read it and say that these are negative digs from Muhammad Sadiq, but at least he wanted the minister to know. And one of the sections in there, he talks about me quite naturally. Sadiq and I were very good friends. He was my buddy, and Brother Wayne and Brother Leroy. We were like a team to help the minister, even if he was going to a college or if he was speaking somewhere. We were like a team that helped him, and Sadiq was a part of it. Anyone know who I'm talking about, Muhammad Sadiq? Brother Director Clark.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's a section in there, he's talking about our names. And the minister, he said that those who would like to volunteer to give up the names that you took on after the Honorable Elijah Muhammad left us. He never forced nobody to give up the name at all. He didn't tell me, you got the name Aziz, you have to give that up. So you did it on your own if you wanted to, and if you wanted to hold on, he never had an objection to it. So when this came up, my daughter's, was somebody with you? So my daughter, the one I mentioned, had passed in Africa, in Sabima. They went to see Minister Farrakhan. We were in the Final Call building in Chicago, right? And they said, Brother Minister, we want to hold on to our names because our degrees, diplomas, driver's license, our property is in those names. And to drop the name and try to go back, rather, would be a task. And the minister told him, go ahead. I didn't know it was in the book. I was reading the book. It's a 493-page book. And I just happened to be reading, and I ran into this in the book. And it shows the minister, you know, is a beautiful man. And he wasn't going to say, all right, well, y'all got to get rid of that Aziz, and otherwise you can't be in here. That's not the minister. You know, and that's the beauty of my brother. And I feel honored that I've served him this long and that he allowed me to. So my daughter has a few words that I want her to say about this tremendous struggle and what it has meant to my family. Salim Aziz.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. Well, I think for the most part, I have to say earlier as children, we just didn't, we knew Dad was there, but we didn't understand why he wasn't there. And so as we got older, you know, and really start to watch, you know, the response from people everywhere, my sisters and I would say, you know, Dad knows everybody. You know, everybody knows our father. And to him, he's our dad. But as I'm older and I can respect the discipline that he's taught us, the discipline that he exemplifies in his own life. And he is stubborn, but very determined, a faithful servant, good friend, and dedicated to the work of raising our people, raising awareness. And if anything, I think for me personally, what I have taken from growing up Muslim, living in a Muslim household, there were a lot of things that our lives were just different. My peers, and when I talk to people about how we grew up and the values and things that we had at home, it's quite different. We are unique, and I tell my brothers and sisters from the university that, you know, we're a different generation, a dying one. The experience that we had growing up in New York was really unique. And my takeaway, if you will, is that we are always, and I tell my children, that we have to be in service to our people. And it doesn't mean that you have to be in the mosque or the temple or the church or the synagogue, but anywhere that our people are, that there's a duty and responsibility that we have to serve, to teach, to do something. Our history is long, and our people are, you know, very lost, some of us. And so there's just a responsibility that we have to serve in whatever capacity that we can. So I thank you, Dad, for that. And my father always encouraged that. Father encouraged us to go to school. I mean, he just said, you have to get your education, and at the time, it's like, you have to be able to take care of yourself. You have to be able to take care of yourself. You know, our brothers are out here, and, you know, they're in different places, and you all need to be able to be independent and have some movement and dexterity in life. So I appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Sisters, we are told and taught to give our brothers and sisters their flowers while they live. Let us give a strong round of applause to our dear brother, Minister Abdul Muhammad. We love you, brother. Let us also give our brother Leroy 23X, a man who was there, a round of applause for his interview. Brother Minister, I just want to take a little license, if you will, if you would just answer this one question. The minister spoke at Attica during the riots. Could you share a piece of that history? Do you remember?
I remember, but he didn't speak there.
Oh, did he negotiate? I know they asked for him.
Yeah, they definitely asked for him. There was two things. One was here in New York. The brothers took over Old Queens. They were in the tombs. Viola, you know this history much better than I do. But the brothers at Attica called for the minister. The minister asked the messenger, could he go? The messenger said yes, but that morning, when they were about to bring in the National Guard, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad looked at it on television and called the minister and said, it looks like they got it under control, you shouldn't go. And that was a blessing. That was divine intervention, because they came in there and killed all of them brothers. 38 they killed, right? I mean, I can never forget it. And if the minister had been up there trying to negotiate, he would have been in the midst of that killing field. So that's what happened. We did go to the tombs, and I'll never forget the Panther brothers said to us, he said, Brother Minister, we are people of action. We don't want to sit down and just wait and see what they do. We need to take a course of action. And those enemies, I mean, and I saw the whole thing, and even I saw the film. After we negotiated that they would go back to their cells and this and that and so forth, they let them out on the roof. Right? Do you remember this? And them animals had sticks, and they beat them brothers unmercifully. So I'm saying that you can't trust the enemy. You just can't trust them. I don't care when the enemy, and then they brainwash some of our brothers. But they beat those brothers, I tell you, brought tears to my eyes with what they did to those brothers. And so our struggle goes on. Don't give up the struggle. You got to pass it on to your children and let that struggle go on. And so I thank you very much, brother.
Thank you.
My daughter's mother, Miriam. Who? Is Miriam here?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.